Welcome to the Commercial Real Estate Podcast. I'm Aaron Cameron. He is Adam Powadiuk, recording live here at the Southwestern Ontario Real Estate Forum. Our guest for this episode is Kelsey Boland, who's the Senior Director of Investments at Fitzrovia. Kelsey, thanks for coming.
Thank you for having me.
Conversation about student housing. And so, probably because I went to University of Waterloo. I went to university in Waterloo, not the University of Waterloo. I went to Laurier. I wasn't smart enough to get to U of W. But this whole region is, I think, has a lot of higher education, whether it's obviously the two I just referenced. Western, I think, is one of the most prominent prominent universities in the country, and many others, McMaster and Hamilton, et cetera, et cetera. So maybe a conversation on student housing is fitting given our location. First, before we do that, we always like to just chat about your career. So how'd you end up in student housing or here on the podcast talking about student housing at Fitzrovia?
Perfect. Well, first off, thanks guys for having me. Really appreciate it. I graduated from the University of Western Ontario, so right in London, the IB program there in 2016. Started at Slate Asset Management thereafter. Was there for 4 years. While I was at Slate, started off on the grocery REIT, working investments down in the US. Spent about 6 months on that. They then launched their first private opportunistic fund in Canada, and I was lucky enough to be kind of tapped to be super involved in that space. While I was there, and this is a time when Slate was really focused on Canada, so it was really about being in the right spot at the right time. We did a bunch of deals, so was intimately involved in the acquisitions of the office space in Calgary. So we acquired 1.5 million feet from Dream in 2017. We then bought Commonar's non-core assets, so everything they owned outside Quebec. So that was 97 assets, 1.14 billion across Canada. Sold a lot of those concurrently with closed to buy down our basis. That was a pretty interesting transaction to work through. Then through kind of the onboarding, bring on the asset management team, overseeing execution of the business plan, and then kind of fund management. After that, focused on kind of broader M&A opportunities across the various verticals at Slate. 2020, I left to start something with a few guys I used to work with. That was called Axie Real Assets. It was a partnership between four of us and CI Financial to launch CI's kind of private real estate alternatives business. At the time, CI was trying to. So first off, CI at the time had 300 plus billion of capital under management and advisory, almost all retail. Very little of which was invested in any alternatives. So the CEO really tried to drive value and create these alternative buckets for their retail clients to get into. So that'd be, real estate, private equity, private credit, private infra. And we were the real estate sleeve that they tapped. So started that in 2021. We knew it was going to take some time to get access to the retail capital, raised a few closed-end funds, invested in grocery in the US, had an American partner that we brought up to Canada to invest in industrial in the GTA, had a family office out of Asia we invested with in Essential Reach in Ontario. So had a few different business lines. 2022 comes, interest rates kind of spike. And CI stock price got cut in half at that point, and kind of the funding we were hoping for and working towards was a little bit less than we'd expected. So at that point, for me personally, just kind of went back to the drawing board, realizing that the way our business was worked out in my head, it wasn't necessarily how it was going to work out on paper. So decided to exit. So I left in 23. Spent the next kind of 6 months trying to figure out what to do next. Have a lot of great experience, worked with awesome people, a lot of people I looked up to, and really wanted to get somewhere where I could get more experience in asset class that I hadn't touched before. So that was, for me, really residential. Had no experience in multi-student development or construction. Fitzrovia was looking for someone kind of with a similar background, and I was lucky enough to land there. So been there just about a year and a half. Can't say better things about the company. I would say super impressive, like Adrian from the top down, just an impressive, competitive, driven, deeply passionate person. So we all learn a lot from him, and the team he's surrounded himself with is full of, people I really respect. And it's amazing having experts in all these fields kind of under one roof, right? You don't have to go far to get an answer. So yeah, it's been great. In terms of what we're focusing on now, it's our standard kind of build a core business in downtown Toronto. It's value add in Toronto and Montreal, core plus in Montreal. And we're really focused right now on the student business. So that's what we're here to talk about today.
I think Adrian said, maybe even on this podcast, he looks for people that kind of live and breathe real estate. Like there's a passion, there's a fire, not just somebody who's competent and shows up and it's a job, but he wants somebody that's just, in it to make a career out of it.
When you were at Western, did you know real estate was where you wanted to go?
Not really, to be honest. First few years worked at Guardian Capital in fixed income trading as an intern. So I mean, you're not exactly doing a heck of a lot, but it was great experience. At least enough experience for me to know that that's not what I wanted to do. You know, sitting behind
Bonds are boring.
But that has value though, learning what you don't want to do.
But sitting behind a Bloomberg terminal, and everyone was doing great, but sitting behind a Bloomberg terminal and, you know, looking at charts and not really dealing with anything, and it's so cliche, but that's tangible, or that you can go and see. For me, that's kind of what I was looking for. And so, you know, I was basically the first intern Slate had in 2015. Got there were 30 people. By the time I left, there were 100. AUM went from 3 to 10 billion. So, it was, it was an awesome
fortuitous.
Well, yeah, your transition time on the various asset classes was pretty good too. Obviously, when office was, you know, the centerpiece of everybody's portfolio, and exiting, I guess, you know, an office focused business in 2020, very good timing.
Not on purpose.
Not on purpose, but yeah, I guess real estate sometimes is just a little bit of luck. And then I guess you said you do some industrial deals at CI Financial, and industrial's exploding and into apartments now. It's you know, tell us what your next asset class will be then, because
students. That's why we're here. Let's go.
Yeah, I mean, I think, look, I could get behind any asset class today as well, to be honest. I mean, I think students a great one. We're super excited about it. We think there's a real opportunity because it has not been institutionalized in this country. You know, the number of groups in Canada that are institutionally backed that do this is not significant. There's not a ton of beds out there. You still, if you go to Western, you're more than likely living in someone's basement or, you know, a dilapidated home. And we really think that there's an opportunity to kind of just change the, you know, add more of these units and change the way and the opportunity and the experience that all these students can have, right? Give them kind of a best in class, highly amenitized, super well designed opportunity to live in something special.
This would be Fitzrovia level amenities,
Correct.
right? Which you're most known for. And is the idea to build all these units, or is it to acquire good assets?
In secondary markets, and so I'll also define those as, you know, London, Kitchener-Waterloo, Guelph, Hamilton, Kingston. So we own assets in London and Kingston today. Would love to get something in Guelph, Hamilton, and Kitchener-Waterloo. We will be building all of those. Those will be branded Waverley, similar to the Waverley at College of Spadina in Toronto, which has been an awesome asset for us. We also have a Waverley at 412 Church, which will cater to the TMU crowd.
Everybody not from Toronto, the asset first mentioned is right beside U of T. So you are capturing the kind of two biggest in the city.
Correct.
And it's just Southern Ontario, or are you expanding beyond?
I think we'll start. I'll let Adrian answer that question, but I think we'll start here and we'll see where it goes. But yeah, I think London specifically is a market we're really, really excited about. Because there's nothing that exists. Like, you go into some of these other secondary markets and there is some decent new product, and for better or for worse, for London doesn't have really any of that. There is a drastic fall off. You either live in kind of an older condo or you live in a house, and there is no real, like, institutionally managed, amenitized product in this market. And we're excited about the opportunity because Western is one of the best schools in Canada, has a ton going for it, pulls in a lot of international students, which I'm sure we'll get to, but also is a big draw from Toronto. So I just think that highly defensive location.
You know, you're not the first developer to look for alternative revenue or alternative assets
or
to
better
invest
yield.
in. Yeah, better. Yeah, and maybe it's even the same yield. But all have stayed away from student housing for a variety of reasons. Too complex, fear of being overbuilt in certain markets.
It's an operating business.
It's an operating business. There's 8-month rents. Like, there's all sorts of these reasons why people haven't gone into it. And maybe just, if you could, discuss some of those and why you're comfortable proceeding anyway. Yeah.
Yeah. Thanks for that question. And I should clarify, when we're talking student housing, it's very much so a student-focused, purpose-built rental building. Okay. Like, we're not doing bedroom, bathroom parity. We're not doing 4 and 5s. This is going to look and feel just like any other one of our purpose-built.
So it's student-oriented,
correct?
Purpose-built apartments.
Correct. And, you know, the Waverley at U of T was a great example of this. We built it as just a normal purpose-built rental building, thinking there may be some students that go there. Fast forward 4 or 5 years, and it's 95% plus occupied by them. The light bulb goes off. Maybe there's real demand for this in other markets, hence why we're here.
Was the price point of that, the units there, the reason you thought there would not be such a high percentage of students? Because it's an expensive building. It's a great building. And I'm not saying you're getting money or value for your money, but compared to other comps in the area, it would be more expensive.
Yeah, it would definitely be on the more expensive side. Now, I would argue that there's a lot of value that we do provide there that isn't offered anywhere else. But I would say, you know, I think we were surprised, but we were pleasantly surprised. We thought that if it wasn't students, there were going to be other, young professionals in that market that would look to kind of live in one of these buildings and could afford that rent. I also think, I mentioned in my panel earlier, but when we're talking affordability, we're targeting people that are family or households that make somewhere between 85 and 200,000 a year. That's like 40% of Toronto. So we do think there's a deep pool. And when we think about student housing focused purpose-built rental, it's really their parents, right? It's international students or it's people's parents, and these are 12-month leases. And if you have a child going to the University of Western, don't you want to know that they're going to have 24-hour concierge? They're going to have full security. It's going to be amazing. They're going to have an amazing place to study. All the amenities you could ever ask for. Likely fully furnished units, so minimize any kind of in and out and work you have to do ahead of time. So we really do think it's just a totally different experience from probably, I don't know where you guys went, but probably from what you...
Suite mix? We're talking lots of bachelors, 1 bedrooms, 2 bedrooms for roommates. How does that work?
Correct. It's probably closer to 60 to 70% studio 1, 20% 2, 10% 3.
To answer your previous question, I lived in a very dilapidated old building in London. But
there you go.
So mine's fun. I lived
As did I.
I went to university for 6 years. Just for fun.
Yep, extra smart.
Yeah, and I lived in 6 different places, and so it would all I ran the gamut from all male dorm to apartment with 5 dudes to solo bachelor, everywhere. So none of them nearly as nice as anything that you guys are talking about. Let's talk about amenities. Like, how do you? So it's student oriented. So you kind of have to future proof these things. I know the Fitzrovia general strategy is long term hold, and so you got to build these amenities that have some flexibility. Talk about the use as design, but how you ensure that it's future proofed.
Yeah, and just again to introduce the asset a little. So this is at the corner of Richmond and Oxford, northern London, right at the kind of gateway to downtown, as our councillor said, or the gateway to the kind of Richmond Row entertainment district. So this is right in the middle of downtown. It's a very prominent corner. Coming in off the corner, you're going to walk into a lobby. It's going to have our signature Tendine coffee in it, coffee / wine bar at night. There's going to be a feature staircase that takes you into mezzanine. That's a big study area. And from there, you're going to have a bunch more of amenities on the second floor. So what those look like sitting here today, we're still figuring that out. But I can tell you that there will be an amazing gym. There will be a rooftop pool. There will be some retail at grade, which to us, we also are very selective, like acts as an amenity. And beyond that, like it's to be determined.
I was jogging with a colleague yesterday who mentioned the coffee at the base of the Waverley College in Spadina as being exceptional. So there's positive feedback in the market.
I appreciate that.
When you say that the space has not been institutionalized, like there is some players, the offering that you bring, will you be competing for similar kind of students, similar offerings? Like how do you think about your competitors in that space? Obviously there's less competitors than the general market rental, but
yeah, I would say, look, there are a handful of institutions that are starting to do this. It's obviously lagged significantly behind the US, the UK, other parts of Europe. But again, focusing on London specifically, for whatever reason, like Kitchener-Waterloo has a lot of competition, right? Kingston, where we are, there's some great new product that's been built. London, there's really not a heck of a lot that's going on. I think one thing that we've been very focused on is getting truly what we deem as kind of a best location. If you're talking one of these student markets, eventually everything's going to come for sale, right? And we have taken years to find that like absolutely perfect location because, I'm going to say it for students, a block can be a mile, right? And we just want to be where they want to be. We focus really on the entertainment district or being downtown, which I think is something a little potentially counterintuitive and not necessarily where a lot of student housing goes. But we think that that's what's going to draw people down there and it's going to be successful.
It's counterintuitive to the usual math of proximity to the property line of the university.
Yeah. But in a lot of, other than I guess Queens, which is right kind of adjacent to the downtown core, or I don't know if core is the right word, but the downtown strip, we think that there's going to be a lot of demand. And I can tell you, I lived right downtown London and I wouldn't have traded that for the world. And I think that there's a lot of people that feel the same way.
Fitzrovia is famous for their amenities. What are you going to do that's student specific?
Yeah, I think that's a I think to
You're going to have the F1 car.
The F1 car, I'm not sure.
For everybody who doesn't know, they've got a F1 simulator, a very high-grade F1 simulator as an amenity in one of the buildings.
Correct, at Elm Library, yeah. And we've also got a full ski simulator that's also used by the national team, which I have not been on, but I've heard it's fun. I think for this, to start with, it's as simple as have a great coffee shop with an awesome kind of shared work environment where everyone can study. I mean, if you go to the Waverly, I always joke, it looks the Waverly U of T, it looks staged because there's so many people doing exactly what the space is intended for, having coffee, meeting with friends, studying in the background. There's the mezzanine where everyone's hanging out and studying. I feel like we just want to create that exact same environment in London and then build amenities that are complementary to it around it.
You know, in my residence experience during university, a lot of programmatic living, right? There's a lot of things happening. There are employees that are running events. Like, is that part of the offering, or debating on how that fits with the Fitzrovia brand?
For sure, yeah. We spend a lot of time on kind of resident event planning. We've got in-house people that's their whole job and that's all they focus on. So whether that's speed dating on Valentine's Day, movie watching, there'll probably be, like right now we have partnerships with the Blue Jays and the Raptors, whether that's viewing parties or something similar to that. But this will be, we're big in trying to create a community, and this will be no different than that. Absolutely.
I heard the London Knights are big here.
Yeah. There you go.
Yeah. Well, you kind of touched on it there. Fitzrovia is the official housing partner of both the Blue Jays and the Raptors, which would be a big draw for buildings located in that area. Do you think that extends out to those regions? I mean, of course, sports are, a national level interest level.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I don't think we're going to have we might have some Detroit Lions fans here, but other than that, I'm not sure anyone's going to jump to any other markets. So I do think those still resonate with people here. And if we want to talk about, we can also mention like other kind of student markets that we're focused on right now, if that helps. That works?
Yeah, it was, well, obviously London's got you pretty excited. Yeah. But what else?
So I would say, we have an asset in Kingston that we just closed on about a month ago. It's 2 buildings with kind of a side street in between, again, around that 500 unit number. It's zoned, shovel ready, so we're hoping to get in the ground sometime later this year, early next.
Similar design style.
To be honest, Hariri Conferini is doing both. We are working with them on 135 St. Clair at the corner of Avenue and St. Clair in Toronto, and have just had an amazing experience with them. So they will be designing both of these. But yeah, obviously the main difference there being there's 2 side by side kind of mid-rise buildings across the street from one another. So I think we'll have a lot of fun planning that one out. And then aside from that, Guelph is a market we've been really hot and heavy on, really trying to get something there. The planning environment there is a little less friendly to developers as London is. Like going through the process in London has just been unbelievable. And I commend Mayor Morgan and the rest of his team. We only submitted our zoning application April 22nd. We had our meeting Tuesday this week with the Planning and Environment Committee, got approved. And we're going to City Council June 24th, which is like unheard of, and they've been unbelievable to deal with. So going back to Guelph, that's a region that we would love to be in that is super underhoused. There's not a lot of student-focused housing, especially not downtown. So we would love to get something there, and we are working on something right now. So hopefully we have something exciting to announce sometime soon.
All the cities you mentioned are of a relatively similar size. Obviously, there's difference. So when you're building these assets, what's the right size of the building?
Yeah, I think for us, again, if we're focused on one building in each of these markets to start with, before we get into think about anything else, it's a minimum of, call it 300 units. We just feel like from our perspective, if you're designing a building that, like for the example, the Waverly U of T, we always say that's 160-ish units. We would not build something that small again because the amount of work that goes into 160 versus 400 is comparable. So we would say that 300 range is our baseline, and if we can get anything more than that, we're happy.
How big are the suites?
It depends. So I would say, studios are 375, ones are kind of 5 and change, 2s are 750, 3s are 900. But one thing I would again focus on is these are fully furnished. So we're going to be very thoughtful in everything that we put into them, and they're going to feel a lot bigger than
the square footage, the size, yeah.
You became a student operator in Toronto. It sounds almost by accident, a happy accident.
Correct.
Would you pursue more opportunities there?
Yeah, absolutely. I think also what you get in Toronto is a lot of the other buildings have students in them, right? So we have Elm Ledbury, which is not far from TMU, and we have a lot of overlap there and a lot of students that move into those spaces. So whether it's a dedicated student building or just more buildings around the city and pockets that we don't currently have assets in, we'll continue to kind of work on that, but we do expect to continue to cater to students for sure.
Any hilarious stories about managing students yet? You hear some of these stories from the student operators about the calls they get and some of the expectations of students. Any noticeable shift in managing students as opposed to regular?
Except for an increased CapEx bill, probably.
Yeah. I can definitely tell you R&M runs a little bit higher. No, I would say, look, we generally deal with really respectful students. It's also their parents. They usually guarantee the leases. So I think that probably plays into them being too crazy. But no, everything's been great so far.
We'll check back in a year or two.
London may be a different story.
Says the guy that went to Western, right?
No comment.
Would you see anything outside of the cities you're looking at? I know that obviously Fitzrovia is a company's exposure in Montreal. Obviously, the school's there. Any interest in pursuing?
Yeah, absolutely. I think we would definitely look at buying existing in Montreal. Our strategy there has been buy core, buy value add, grow a team organically, and then kind of start dipping our toes into development from that perspective. We don't want to be the group from Toronto that dives in and tries to pretend that we know what we're doing in a different market. So I would say development there will come at some point. Is that today? We'll start looking at it, but it might be 6, 12, 18 months from now. But we absolutely actively looking at acquiring more assets in Montreal focused on students. I mean, they've got a few great universities. We would also look outside of Montreal, Quebec City, other major markets like that.
Your student housing program is a bit of an inception stage. Where do you see the student branch of the Fitzrovia enterprise, 5 years from now?
I think it's something we're really excited about. It's something we have experience in Toronto doing. We're really excited about bringing that to other markets. I see us getting one asset in all 5 of those markets I originally mentioned, and then probably going for another. If we're in the entertainment district, we would love to have something close to campus and kind of play off each other there in all those markets. And from that perspective, I think then we go into Quebec, we go west. I don't know whether that's all the way to BC or if we stop off in Alberta. But I see this as like a national platform and truly being best in class.
I love it. Thanks so much. I appreciate you spending time with us today. Thanks, of course, to First National for powering the podcast, the Real Estate Forum for hosting us here at the Southwest Ontario Real Estate Forum. This does conclude our day here in London. It's been fantastic. But above all, thank you so much to our guest.
Perfect. Thanks a lot, guys. Appreciate it.
Thanks for coming on.